Hello, everybody and anybody, because we are talking about the golden era of Atlantis. And it's one of my favorite subjects. I love talking about Atlantis. When I wrote Discover Atlantis, which I've got here, it was one of my favorite books. Actually, I had quite a few favorites. Oh, Freya, you've joined us. How do you always manage to be first? You are so good. And Natasha, I like your blue heart. Fair and Caroline, you can't wait for Atlantis to come back. But the good news is it's coming back at a frequency higher than it was then. And it's up to us to birth that energy. Hi, Caroline. And Joe, nice to see you. While I was waiting, I picked a card from the Atlantis deck and got Fifth Dimension. It's very gentle. The colors of that time were so gentle. And it says, if you draw this card, or there's some information about the fifth dimension. Well, I'll read that bit first. In the golden years of Atlantis, the people maintained a fifth dimensional frequency by living in accordance with the highest spiritual values. One of their tenets was, do unto others as you would have them act towards you. And of course, this is what we're all trying to do now. As a result, they were at all times loving, welcoming, fair, cooperative, and generous. They aspired to live in love. So if you draw this card, your guidance is to ask yourself how you would like to be treated and act towards others accordingly. For example, if you want someone to see your side of an argument, make sure you listen to theirs. This enables you to maintain a higher perspective on life, which will help you rise into the fifth dimension. Makes it sound so easy, doesn't it? Hi, Alicia and Sandra and Trisha and Patty and Rita from Lisbon and Paula. Hi, Paula and Tonya, Elizabeth, Nadine. Looking forward to this. Right, says Nadine. Me too. I feel I'd like to start, but maybe wait until a few more people have joined us. Oh, hi, Judy from New Zealand and Yolanda from South Africa and Ariana from Germany. Christopher. Thank you. Looking forward to this too, Christopher. Marianne. Good evening. You love this subject too. Fabulous, Marianne and Laura and Alejandro and Rona. Love my scarf. Thank you, Rona. Rona is organising my workshop in Canada very shortly. Sarah and Vicky and Carmen and Marion and Alison. You love that book as well. Yes, Discover Atlantis. It's got lots of different covers. It's been coming out over the years in different covers, but that's the one I happen to have here. And Stamatula and Sherry and Miriam and Viola. Hi, Linda. And Caroline says, when she bought the book, I signed it, Remember Who You Are. And that's a really good thing. Remember who you are. Oh, you love those cards, says Carolyn. Thank you. Well, there you go, Carolyn. I'll pick a card for you. As you've said that, let's just pick a card and see what you've got. Contentment. Now, that was one of the things that they had in Atlantis. This is one of my favorite cards. You could just feel the contentment coming off it. And it tells you to experience a well-deserved feeling of satisfaction. Accept yourself as you are and acknowledge all your good qualities and gifts. Then breathe in quiet contentment. This will enhance your feelings of well-being and attract more harmonious situations to you. People say, how can I change my life? And there's an answer. Okay, let's start talking about Atlantis. And I thought that I might just start with a little bit of the history, because Atlantis was such a long period of 260,000 years, with 10,000 years to set it up and 10,000 years to tie up the loose ends. So it actually lasted 240,000 years, that almost everybody in incarnation now, unless they've specially come in to help with the birthing of the new age, has had incarnations, many, many incarnations in Atlantis. And it was set up as an experiment. The aim was to see if people could have a physical body and still maintain their connection to source, and obviously look after their physical body. So it was designed so that your thoughts created your skeleton, your emotions created your flesh. Every single thing was reflected in your body, and your body was a biofeedback mechanism. And of course, in the days before we'd earned all this karma, that worked really well. So the first experiment and the second one descended into horrible, horrible, awful, awful things. And we still have the impact of them on the planet now. So the Intergalactic Council decided to do things differently the third time. They provided everything that the people needed. It was a cornucopia of delight. There were advanced technology was provided, everything. But of course, those beings that had caused the fall before, they came back. They were the sons of Belial, but also the children of the Law of One were there. So there was a big clash between darkness and light. But the big thing that made it impossible to live then was that huge, huge animals evolved. And these huge animals were masterminded by a being from another planet. And so they made them impossible for humans to live there. So they decided to have the 5-country conference, and beings teleported, because of course they had advanced technology in those days, from Russia, Sudan, India, Peru, and of course Atlantis. And they decided that the only way to clear the animals was to set off an atomic bomb. We don't know the full composition of it even now, but in 52,000 BC, underground, they set off an atomic bomb. And again, the consequences of this are still being felt on Earth now. So the animals and the people all perished. There were massive earthquakes, which started about 2,000 years afterwards, and took that long for the impact to work fully on the planet. And the Earth shifted on its axis, and then Atlantis became 5 islands. Up to then, it had practically filled the whole of the ocean, where the Atlantic Ocean now is. So the fourth experiment in 48,000 BC, the Intergalactic Council decided to reseed Atlantis. And again, beings from all over the universes came in. And again, the sons of Belial, the dark force, was stronger than the light ones. They misused power, and it was terminated. And then the planet was purified by an ice age for 2,000 years. They work in rather larger time scales than ours. And so for the 5th experiment, these 5 islands coming down through the Atlantic Ocean became much smaller. The only remaining bits of them are the Bermuda, the Canary Islands, and the Azores. That's all that remains. But this time, the Intergalactic Council decided it must be a controlled experiment. And so they created a great dome, which was placed over it. And this dome, anybody that came near it, or any creature, any being from any of the other experiments on Earth at the time. Remember, there were lots of different experiments. Atlantis only became so well known because it evolved so dramatically and had such extraordinary technology. And they brought anybody that approached that dome, any being, just was automatically turned back energetically. So nobody could come into that controlled experiment of Atlantis. And the great crystal was provided, and pure source energy came through it. So it was a power generator with pure source energy. And it was a computer. It was a portal. It was awesome. And as most of you know, I think at the end of Atlantis, it fell into the center of the Bermuda Triangle and caused some of the problems that we've heard about since in the Bermuda Triangle. These and the Temple of Poseidon was built. That was the other thing they were given. But that was inaccessible to them. That was on the heights. It was only accessible to the high priests and priestesses or beings who could levitate or fly to it. So the beings that came in for this experiment, they were all fifth dimensional at the beginning. From all over the universes, they didn't know each other. They were complete strangers to each other, and they were given nothing. They had water, earth, plants, trees, and they were taught by the high priests and priestesses to make rudimentary shelters. Now, these beings had their 12 strands of DNA fully operational. Their 12 chakras were in and flowing at the upper levels of the fifth dimension, and they had no karma. So they had perfect health when they arrived. And the first things they did was cooperate in their groups to build a kind of stone circles which were attuned to different stars to bring in the wisdom of the stars. So 12 high priests and priestesses came in, and there was one in charge of each region. Now we know those 12 because they left after they had done their job, but then they came back at the end of Atlantis to lead their tribes away. So that's why the 12 that we know of are, we know other ones as well, but those 12 are really well known. They took all the practical decisions, and in every area, people built places of worship, and at the end of the day, they would go there to give thanks. Give thanks for this extraordinary opportunity to be on Earth and experience life in a physical body. They maintained the divine simplicity, and they just did everything to appreciate life in a body. That's what they came for. So they'd never before touched a leaf, felt a leaf, stroked a leaf and felt what it was like, or smelt the air, or felt the earth under their feet. All of these amazing things were completely new, and they were overwhelmed with the joy of being allowed to experience it. So it's a reminder. Every time I think about that, I think, yeah, listening to the song of the birds, putting your fingers into water and feeling it running through your fingers. These are experiences you can only have on Earth. And that is one reason why it is such a prized place to come to. And we are considered to be extremely blessed to be allowed to come here. So I've been sent in quite a few questions, and I will start looking in a minute at the questions if they come up. Rose sent several, all linked together. She said, are we linked together on the planet to receive the same higher level of consciousness as we go through the golden Atlantis era? Or will some countries and people take longer? Or will a shift of consciousness affect everybody in the world at the same time? Okay, now the golden Atlantis era is past. We are now approaching a new golden age. The period, golden Atlantis, the experiment of Atlantis, the 260,000 years finally ended at the cosmic moment in 2012. That was the end of Atlantis, but it was the start of a 20-year period when we are birthing a new golden age. And the energy in this new golden age is to be higher than the frequency of golden Atlantis. So we have an extraordinary opportunity. We're incredibly blessed to be here to experience this. So is it going to happen to everybody at the same time? No. Some people are operating fully in the fifth dimension now and are spending time in the sixth dimension already. And even in the height of the golden era, the high priests and priestesses were the only people that could move into the sixth dimension and could only do so for a short time. And of course, you don't maintain your physical body so much. But now we're starting to bring in sixth dimensional chakras and actually feel them in our physical bodies. So already some people have moved into a higher frequency. But of course, the conditions around us are very different. At that time, everyone was living in love and light. Everyone was working for the highest good. And so there are some countries like Pakistan and Afghanistan that are way behind, and they are holding everything back. And we need to send love and light and peace into those countries so that they can come up, because nothing ascends until the whole body ascends. So it's not about me ascending, you ascending, it's about us all ascending. And that's why it's so important that we spread the light as much as possible. And so, no, it's happening gradually everywhere. And is it possible to communicate with the people of Atlantis, or is their vibration too high at the moment? I think I answered that before. Already people are rising higher than the frequency that they had 12,000 years ago in the golden era of Atlantis. And of course, there are lots of people that haven't. Oh, this isn't about Atlantis. My guardian angel put this symbol in my hand, and she put a pink heart. I asked to meet my ideal partner for me, that now I am ready. What do you mean? And that's from Simona. Okay, the answer is, which will probably annoy you intensely, the moment you are ready to be the ideal partner, then the ideal partner comes to you. Now, you're probably spitting nails when I say that, though it's absolutely true. It's always about being the right person, not finding the right person, because you attract the right person in then. And so do some work, if you're waiting for somebody, on your heart center, clearing your heart center, opening up, being as loving and warm as you can be, thinking about all the qualities you want in a partner, and then bringing them forward in yourself. If you want a partner who's loyal and loving, then make sure you are totally loyal and loving in all your friendships. And that is how you attract in the ideal partner for you. Of course, you can't make yourself tall, dark, and handsome if that's what you want, but you can make yourself as attractive as possible if that's what you want. Okay? I'm sure you didn't want that answer at all. Okay, I was listening to your video the other day on Facebook where you said, ask for your guardian angel to come to you and ask him or her a question, and they'll give you a sign or symbol on your concern or question. I asked my guardian angel, will I conceive a healthy, happy baby? And I was almost instantly shown a cactus. I just wondered if it meant anything. Well, of course, it's come from your unconscious or your angel, whichever, as a response. This is from Denise. I don't know what a cactus means to you, Denise, but to me, it's prickly, and it says that you really need to do some work on yourself. And I was reminded of how they conceived a baby in Golden Atlantis. So the first thing that the couple did when they decided they wanted a baby together was to meditate together, and often with the extended family, for the kind of soul that they could best serve. In other words, absolutely recognizing that parents are in service to the child. This is not about, oh, I want a baby to make me feel better or to fulfill me. That's not the energy of Golden Atlantis. It's not the energy we're taking into the new Golden Age. It's about how can I best serve? What kind of soul can I serve best? And then when they'd meditated on that, they would ask one such soul to step forward, and perhaps there would be a choice of 2 or 3. And one of them they would connect with, communicating telepathically. And remember, the grandparents, the parents, the uncles and aunts are all involved in this, because it takes a whole extended family to bring in a child. And then the couple would have sex, and they would physically draw the spirit or soul of that baby in. And that's how they conceived a baby. Every single baby was therefore wanted and loved. And so the parents did absolutely everything they could to make sure that soul developed in the right way. They would take the baby to the priest, and of course, in those days, the priests were the psychics, and the priest would read its past lives, its soul history, and explain what gifts it had come in with, what talents, and the parents would nurture those gifts and talents. This meant that every child grew up being able to do things well, because if you're good at something or you're drawn forward with something you are good at, that maybe it's latent within you, but that skill or that gift is drawn out of you, then of course you feel happy, you feel comfortable. And this is what they did in Atlantis to bring up the baby, and then later on the children. So that's the answer to the question, Denise. Meditate for the kind of child, kind of soul that you can serve with your partner, and then draw that soul in, knowing that your intention is to serve it. And then, of course, that's when the child that's right for you comes in. Every child is right for their parent, but the one that you're wanting to come in. Okay, I haven't had any more questions coming up that I've seen, but I haven't necessarily been watching that. Here's an interesting question. How much of the Atlantean language do we remember now? Well, the answer is that in the golden era of Atlantis, everyone was incredibly telepathic, and they didn't need to communicate, and they hardly had any language at all. So they would even be able to send a video from their mind to the other person's mind. So if your partner was out somewhere working and you wanted to say supper's nearly ready, you would make a picture and you would send it to them, and they would pick it up and send a picture back. I'm on my way home, or whatever. Or you wanted to know that your children were safe, you'd send a picture to them or a telepathic message to them, and they would show a picture of themselves climbing trees or swimming, or these are the sort of things that children did in Atlantis. They were outside in the fresh air almost all the time. And so the answer to the question is, from golden Atlantis, very little. And did single people immediately leave home on reaching adulthood? And this is from Rhiannon. When they were 16, so interesting actually, because when a baby was born, a dog would come to the house and it would appear on their doorstep. That dog was for that child. It was expected, family would expect it. The dog would be the child's companion, would protect the child, would go to school with them. The child would look after the dog because it was considered that looking after another species taught the child to be responsible and caring and loving. And then when the child grew to 16, it was time to leave home. And the dog would automatically pass over because its work was done. And the child would either get married and go into do whatever work it was going to do, or it would go into the priesthood where it wouldn't get married straight away. In the priesthood, a novice didn't get married in the first year of training in the priesthood. And but then in the first year, they lived in dormitories and they were very, very focused. Well, they were all the time. But they had, after they were novices, they could either stop then, and then they could get married, or they could become adepts if they had the right energies. It was all to do with energy. You didn't become a priest unless you had the right energies in your aura to say that you could do that. And then they did extraordinary mind training, and let me look at this in the book because it is really interesting. Oh no, sorry, I told you wrong. The novices started training at 13, so they trained from 13 to 16. It was a 3-year training, and they could marry at the end of the 3 years if they wanted to, because everything was done so much younger then because they were more evolved, very different from us. But they would learn advanced mind control, and they could direct their energy to make their hands hot or to lower the temperature or to teleport something. Many things that people are actually starting to do now. But they really can continue to prepare themselves to be vessels for higher energy come in. And then the adults, they took a 3-year training course, starting in the temples, and in that time they didn't emerge for the first year, and they developed their skills and they worked under the direction of an initiate until at the end they were really, really advanced and they could marry, but many of them chose to stay single. But in order to become an initiate, that you had to prove yourself, and they were constantly assessed. They had to. It wasn't until they became an initiate that they could actually control their energy fields to such an extent that they could begin to fly. And then the mage, they were incredibly powerful. And they were the most devoted and the purest of the initiates. And they had the power to control the elements. Well, we know from work we've often done when we're doing service videos or when we're working together on something, that we have the power to control the elements. We just have to be very calm and centered and talk to them. But they had total power. They were incredibly, incredibly advanced. And they could do soul retrieval. They could talk to the dead. They were prophecy, divination. They were mediums, but very, very pure mediums. And when they finished their service work, because the mage were here in service, they would go to special crystal chambers. And they would just take their body with them and they would leave. And they ascended. So they did incredibly high frequency work. And then, of course, there were always 12 high priests and priestesses in Atlantis at any one time, even though they turned over. Okay. Saloni, I think that's how you pronounce your name. Very interesting, makes so much sense. Yes, it does make sense. And Sarah says, how do we know if we had lifetimes in Atlantis? Well, you will have a feeling about it. You would be interested. And as I said earlier, almost everybody on the planet who's been here before has had lifetimes in Atlantis because it was such an incredibly long period of time. It's been the longest civilization that there's ever been on the planet, even though it fell and rose a few times. Corinne says she drew an encaustic, I'm not sure what that is, painting several years ago. It looks like Atlantis sunk in the sea. Yeah, that was the end of Atlantis. Oh, Mary Mack, you dreamt you met a very special baby who grew up to be a beautiful girl, and I loved her so deeply. Her name was Melina. She had to move to France, so I wouldn't see her again. Woke up in floods of tears. I'm sorry, I can't read the last bit because it's moved up. Okay, Barbie says, I believe cactus means protecting yourself. Oh, that's a bit of a different interpretation. So protect yourself as an answer to your question about the baby. Oh, sorry. I'm trying to read them and go back to other ones. Yeah. So let's move on. I'm sorry, because I've forgotten now what I was talking about. Katrina says, are there going to be cities under domes all around the world during times when Mother... I'm sorry, I have to wait for it to move up before then. I don't think so. The new golden cities will start to form very soon when Mother Earth heals. What about weather control? Well, that's two questions. I don't think the new cities will be under domes because that was specifically designed as a controlled experiment. And the dome also was created the weather within each of the islands. Each of the islands was slightly different. The most northerly one was cooler. The most southerly one was tropical. And so they all had slightly different conditions, but the weather was controlled by the dome. And in the future, we will again be able to control the weather, but I don't think this will be until after 2050 when the new age kicks in to a greater extent. Don't forget, it's not going to be in 2032, one day we're in the old age, next day we're in the new age. It's going to be like 2012. Suddenly there was an acceleration, a speeding up of the frequency, and it'll be the same then. We need to get back to that. Your son has autism and he's amazing. And yes, basically autism means that part of the soul can't cope with the low energies here and withdraws. It isn't about all autistic children, but a great many of them. And they've been specially trained before they came to Earth to deal with the energies here, but nothing can really prepare any being from a higher plane of existence for the low frequencies on Earth. And the beings that are coming in are finding it very, very difficult. Okay, how can we remember our time in Atlantis? Well, meditate on it. How can we retrieve and activate our spiritual gifts and capacities? That's the same answer. And how can we bring them to our conscious awareness? Find the things that give you soul satisfaction and joy and develop those. And that's the way you find your gifts. How can we heal the wounds from Atlantis' fall? Well, this is a collective thing that many, many light workers are doing now. They're taking part of the energy through their own energy fields, very hard work and sometimes making themselves ill in the process. And everybody is doing a little bit to heal it at the moment. Every single time you heal an aspect of yourself, you're healing something that happened then, because this is part of bringing the wholeness back. And will the temples of Atlantis rise again physically? No. Those questions were from Anchor, but no, they won't rise again physically. And can I say something about Israel and Jerusalem? Well, areas in which the Christ light was actually there in the land, and that's why Christ came in to those areas. That's why he was born. That's why they decided that Jesus would be born there. Archangel Christiel has his retreat above Jerusalem, and Mallory, his twin flame, has a retreat above Bethlehem, so that they are focusing their Christ energy into those areas. But the situation now is about egos clashing. And until the frequency is raised and new acceptance comes in, it will continue. And let's hope that everybody raises the frequency on Earth so that that moves on quickly. Who do I pray for when needing help on preparing for and taking exams? It's from Rebecca. I would ask Archangel Raphael. He's in charge of the mind, the third eye, and he's very, very soothing and calming and healing. So, oh dear, how did Atlanteans protect themselves from psychic attacks or things they didn't want to be associated with? Okay, in the golden era of Atlantis, everybody was a high frequency. There was nothing like psychic attacks. That's end of Atlantis stuff or early experiments of Atlantis. Remember, in that last experiment, the fifth experiment, that's when everybody lived in simplicity and love and acceptance. That's when the frequency rose to the incredible levels. That's when Lord Vuslu, the greatest high priest that ever came here, stepped in to help Earth. He came in as a high priest, and he triggered the great jump shift in consciousness that allowed the golden era to take place. But nobody needed to protect themselves because there was nothing to protect themselves from. Jackie says, amazing. Telepathically, you call your cat home and he always appears. Animals are incredibly telepathic. I've only got to think, I'm just going to put you on a lead, Venus. And she runs. She's got Jack Russell in her. She just does a runner. She's gone. She's found herself a lovely area of trees or thicket or something. And I had to be very careful of the thoughts, I think. Vicky, I so want to live in Atlantis again. Will we ever get back to it? No, we're going forward to it. We are going forward to a new golden age at an even higher level. This is why we're working so hard for everybody to keep their fifth dimensional chakras open, to look at things from a higher perspective. I've just filmed a whole lot of news service videos, which I'm not sure when they'll go out, but it's all about sending light into places, healing the earth, shifting our own frequencies so that the whole world will be ready. Will people go into fifth dimensional space, into spaceships and take people on board? Is this accurate? I don't resonate with that. I've heard people say it. Okay, Georgia, I've had a wonderful relation. You have a wonderful relationship with your guardian angel calling himself Michael, and Archangel Michael. He's with me a lot. I've heard them. I've known the meanings. I think this is clairaudience and claircognizance. I'd love to be able to see the angels. How can I cultivate this? And did the angels work with the people of Atlantis, or were they not needed at that time? Indeed, every single person had an angel with them during Atlantis. It's part of our heritage, our blueprint on Earth. In fact, when your monad left source, it was programmed with angelic energy. And so when we say the angel's with us, actually it's all part of us. And so everybody had an angel, everybody had a unicorn, and the unicorns helped to keep them pure, to constantly pour higher light into them. Oh, Jill, you've tried this, presumably telepathy, with your Tonkinized cat, and he frets when you're not home. I think now he understands that I'll return. Bless him. Great. That's wonderful. Can I talk about the animals in Atlantis? I feel very pulled to maybe a priestess of the animals. Right. I do talk quite a lot about the animals that came in and discover Atlantis, but of course my animal book talks about them to a much greater degree. So in the golden era of Atlantis, the first animals that came in, and this was after the people had been there for a little while, were the service animals. And these were the animals that came in to help the people, like the horses and the cows, and the goats. And then there were another wave of animals, and perhaps I can't remember exactly, pigs and sheep, but animals who were loved, appreciated, valued, and gave their goods absolutely wholeheartedly, and in return received shelter and caring and were looked after. Oh, Nadine, that's interesting. Does it resonate with you? I'd say during a crystal reading, you were told you've been an adept in Atlantis, but you missed your chance because she wasn't loyal to her teacher, who was the priestess in those days. How can you release this karma? The first thing, if it resonates with you, of course, I mean, if it doesn't resonate with you, then just let it go. If it resonates with you, you ask. Just sit down very quietly, ask the spirit of that teacher that you had at that time to come forward, and in meditation, say that you're sorry and ask that the cords that connect you are now released, and that any vows you made that you didn't keep are now totally rescinded. And if you do that from a pure heart, it will happen, automatically happen for you. She does. Were there Atlantis-like places on other planets? No. This planet is totally unique. This is why we get into such difficulties, but it's also why it's considered to be so important and such a privilege to come here. And this is why people just want to come here. Right. I think I've dealt with all the questions that people have sent in. So what I'd like to suggest is perhaps we just do a little visualization. What time is it? Yeah, 1:45. We've got time to do a little tiny visualization to see if we can bring back any memories or feelings from that time. So if you'd like to join me very quickly, just close your eyes. Feel your feet on the floor. Take a deep breath. And let yourself relax. Know that you are now going to go back to the golden era of Atlantis. And a golden bridge is appearing in front of you. And as you walk over this golden bridge, you're walking back in time, moving back through thousands of years, right back to the other side when you're ready to step into the pure land of golden Atlantis. Step onto the land now and look down at your feet. What are you wearing on your feet? Notice what clothes you're wearing. Feel the material. What color is it? And then notice, are you a man or a woman? What's your hair like? And then take your time to walk in golden Atlantis. Maybe you'll see the houses, perhaps a house you lived in, or a temple. Just feel if you were a priest, or you worked on the land, or you worked to develop higher technology. What were your special gifts and talents? Might see the animals and see how loved they were, how respected and how happy they looked. You might even like to walk into a temple. Be aware of the crystal of the temple. Notice the feeling in this temple. And feel in your heart the love that's radiating everywhere. And know that even though this was just a brief moment, a brief memory, you can bring gifts and talents and feelings back with you. So step onto the bridge again. Walk across the bridge back to the present time. Find yourself wearing the clothes you were wearing before you stepped onto the bridge. In the place where you were. And then, feeling completely grounded and connected, open your eyes. Okay, a few questions here. Was Merlin in Atlantis? Yes, he was. I'll just have a think. Oh, he was part of Thoth, wasn't he? And Barbie, yes, I'm holding it. There's the answer. I don't know if it's still what price it is. I'll take that off. Discover Atlantis is a book I wrote many, many years ago with Sharon Hutton, and it absolutely covers everything about Atlantis, from the how it was set up to what they did. There's lots of how they opened the third eye, how they work with crystals, their technology, their homes, farming, how it was set up, and then life after the second generation, how a society was formed, the priesthood, marriages, their chakras, the psychic arts, how they trained. Everything is in there. It's amazing. Are the same angels, gods and goddesses that served in the Atlantean time serving us now? Absolutely. some in bodies and some out of bodies. If you'd like to share anything that you experienced, that would be absolutely great. Amanda, you dreamt of Atlantis a few months ago. Miriam, you saw an incarnation where you were a landscape architect in Atlantis the other day. Yeah, well, that was something that they did. They were wonderful gardeners and they did amazing things. To send folks back to the moon, was there any Atlantis connection to living on the moon? No. They went out of body to different stars and planets to bring back wisdom. Is there something extra special about cats? Yeah, they hold the energy. And the first thing the mage did when Atlantis started to go down, I can't see these questions, they're going too fast, was to send to Orion for more cats to see if they could hold the energies. When Atlantis finally fell, the 12 priests and priestesses each took their tribes to different parts of the planet. Maybe on another occasion we can talk about that. And they brought the Atlantean energy to that part of the world. Somebody asked about Australia, but Australia was Lemurian. What about light workers staying healthy at the moment? It's absolutely keep your thoughts pure and eat and drink the right foods. Be very interesting to see if any of you actually attuned to any gifts and talents that you had in Atlantis. Yeah, hi Rona. Yes, looking forward to see you at Lake Louise when I come in about 4 weeks, I think, to Canada to do a workshop in Banff. I mean, can you imagine doing a workshop about Archangel Michael in Banff? It's too amazing for words. I think Rona put a link up there. Marion says it was good to be back in Atlantis. Yeah, and the love there. Because everybody sent out love. Can you imagine it? If no one was sending you judgment, everybody was sending you good energy, and the earth itself was pure, and that's what it was. An enchantress of Atlantis, that's nothing to do with golden Atlantis. You're a teacher in the temple of wisdom, full of love and kindness. That's really special. Bring that wisdom back. It's there in you. Gorgeous white horse appeared and took me to a temple, saw a big lapis lazuli crystal, felt powerful and peaceful. Wonderful. Silver blue ground. There's a priestess from a silver blue crystal palace. Great. How you were levitating above it. You were dressed in white and gold. You are an artist painting symbols of, I think it said love. You were a teacher in a temple that was also a school. Yeah. The teachers were specially chosen for their ability to be teachers for each age group. Wearing a long white dress with silver sandals and dark cloak, you went to a huge temple with a pale pink crystal. So that's possibly a temple of love, and you were a musician. Oh, wonderful. And Ben, you worked with the violet flame, and that was at the violet flame temple, very powerful. You worked with children and animals. You weren't thinking of animals, you were a healer and working with lots of crystals. Of course, we hadn't even had time to talk about the crystals or the great crystal. You went to a citrine temple, dressed in white and brown, lived in the forest and cared for the bees. What a wonderful job. You were holding golden healer crystals, citrine. Right. You saw dogs, rabbits and cats. Well, they often played together in Atlantis, rabbits and cats, because they all come from Orion. Your hair was dark gold with long ringlets, pale lilac linen dress. Beautiful cats round you in the meadow, collecting herbs and flowers for medicinal properties. How lovely. You were wearing white with no shoes. That's a lot of them didn't wear shoes because the earth was pure and they would take the energy in from the earth. You were asked by someone you know from this life to take my seat in an emerald palace. Wow. Wow. You were married with a young child, happy family life. All family life was happy. Very, very occasionally, if it didn't work out, then you could get divorced. But it was very rare, because when a couple wanted to get married, they went to the priest, who looked at their auras and checked that they were mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually compatible. So it nearly always worked. Oh, there's one there about harmony. Lovely. Felt your gifts were your hands. You had visions of my hands showering white light. So that's kind of a healing. It's wonderful. Hi from Cambodia and Germany. Hi. You were a healer and midwife in many lifetimes. Brilliant. So then you're very, very skilled in this lifetime if you bring all that back with you. You were levitating above Atlantis in a golden body. You feel absolutely joy and free from karma, of course. So you healed very quickly. They didn't have to do real healing. They just put people back into balance again in that time. You felt the dolphins, pink dolphins. Yeah, they actually constructed huge pools which had access to the ocean, and the dolphins would come in there and play with them and raise the frequency and give them their wisdom, because they brought the wisdom down from Sirius to impart to the people. Wow. Oh, and Rona has put up the link to the workshop in Canada that I'll be doing soon. Thank you, Rona. You work with the rainbow rays of the crystals and communication for children, says Trish. Lovely. And you've got an aquamarine and pink rose temple, and you received heart healing. Wow. Oh, you were painting with your daughter and you were dancing. That's lovely too. I think the thing about Atlantis, Golden Atlantis, it brings back soul satisfaction and happiness. And that's really important. So it's next Wednesday for Facebook Live. I'm talking about the meaning and importance of your name. And so just as you talk about numerology, and we've talked about the meaning of the letters, the numbers, the letters of your name, especially the first letter of your Christian name, because you use it more than anything else. See, I've just seen Joyce. And so J, when you pronounce the J, it's about rulership. It's about expressing your majesty. And so every time it's pronounced, it vibrates in you and reminds you of that. So I think that's very exciting. So the week after that, I'm not doing Facebook Live. The week after that, I'm talking about the wisdom of Lemuria. Now, I did a healing from Lemuria Zoom recently, and it was very, very, very popular. So on the 24th of April, I am doing a Wednesday night Zoom, which is Unicorn and Archangel Gems. And I am very excited about that, because they've taken me and let me sit in, or used on me, their Archangel Gems, which are a very, very, very high frequency, with all the energy of the rays of those gems and the Archangel of the gems. And then the unicorns put their 9th dimensional light through it. And we use it in different ways on sapphires, emeralds, rubies, diamonds, and pearls, which are different. So that's the 24th of April, really special. And then on the Sunday, I think it's the one after that, doing Archangel Raphael Zoom. So lots and lots of exciting things to look forward to. And so we live in such amazing times, and I love being with talking to you and sharing with you. And thank you so much for sharing that for me, what you experienced. And I think we'd better end there. It's gone 8 o'clock. So lots of love, everybody. Lots of blessings. Take care.